Hi, my name is Rachel Steele, and I'm a speech language therapist at Big Blue Canopy. So, a child's first word is a significant milestone in child development and something to be celebrated. And we often have families who come into Big Blue Canopy expressing concern that their child is not yet using words. And while words may be the ultimate goal, there are so many skills that develop before words emerge to sort of pave the way for language. And so these are called prelinguistic skills because they develop before language. There are 11 prelinguistic skills that center around social interaction because communication is all about interacting with others. And before children can interact with and communicate with others using words, they have to learn how to communicate and interact with others without words. And that's what makes these 11 skills foundational for language development. And regardless of the child's diagnosis, you'll see these skills. Whether a child is typically developing, has a language delay, has autism, has Down syndrome, or some other diagnosis, all children develop these skills before language comes into play. Okay, so the first skill we'll talk about is reacting to events in the environment. This is important for language because we need to notice what is going on around us, to comment on what we see, what we hear, what we feel. And children develop this skill by exploring toys and exploring their environment. So questions to ask yourself to determine if your child does have this important prelinguistic skill. Does your child explore the environment and toys by looking, reaching, maybe even mouthing, banging, or holding onto objects? Does he react to noises, lights, and other events that happen around him? The second prelinguistic skill is responding to people when they talk to or play with your child. This is important for language because conversation is social and it always involves at least two people. We learn to communicate so that we can engage with others and build fun, loving relationships. Questions to consider. Does your child smile and interact with others during play? Does she fuss and have trouble being away from you? Does she look around for a person if she hears him speak? Does she seek interaction and attention from others? And does she respond to her name consistently? The third prelinguistic skill is taking turns during interactions. So we interact through taking turns. Conversation is made of those back and forth interactions. Before children learn to take turns while talking, they learn how to take turns in action and in play. So some questions to consider. Does your child respond to what you say using eye contact, babbles, or gestures? Like maybe you say something and then stop, and your child just starts babbling away and then stops and looks at you, kind of waiting for your response or for you to take your turn. Does he make a sound or silly face and then stop and wait for your response? And when you play little social games together, is he going to try to keep it going? So let's say you take a few turns while playing peekaboo and then pause. Is your child going to use his voice or his body to initiate that game again and to let you know, hey, I want to keep playing? And those are some of the skills that shows us a child has developed turn taking. Skill number 4 is developing an increased attention span. So attention is important for learning any new skill. And if a child can't stay with you long enough, learning is going to be really difficult. That's why attention is foundational to language learning and development. Questions to ask yourself. Can your child stay engaged in an activity for about 5 minutes when playing by herself, and even longer if you're involved? Does she have a difficult time sitting still? Does she participate in quiet activities like reading a book or putting together a puzzle? A child's attention span should increase to at least 5 minutes, as I said, when playing by himself or herself, and even longer when playing with an adult. So this is a really important skill that we want to make sure is in place to support language. The fifth skill is participating in joint attention interactions with others. And when I say joint attention, I'm talking about how a child shifts and shares attention with others. So joint attention shows that a child has an understanding that two people can focus on the same thing. That's how kids learn the important things that others want to share with them. Like when a parent points to an object or event and tells the child what it is. Those interactions build a child's vocabulary. For example, a mom points to a dog. The child follows her point to also see the dog and understands we're sharing this experience. We both see the dog. Then mom says, look, a dog. The child then learns, oh, it's a dog. That's how vocabulary is built. And later on, joint attention becomes a skill we need for conversation, like how we need to follow the topic of conversation when we are interacting with others. Questions to ask yourself to see if your child does demonstrate joint attention. When you point to something, does your child look in the direction you're pointing? Does he show you things or use pointing to get you to look at something? And does he interact with you while playing with the toy? So maybe he's playing with the toy, looks up at you, plays with the toy again, like, hey, are you seeing this? And tries to kind of get you involved. Skill number 6, playing with a variety of toys appropriately. So there's this saying that play is a child's work. And I love this saying because children learn an incredible amount through play. We see this time and time again at Big Blue Canopy because we are play-based. And play helps develop a child's cognitive skills like thinking, planning, paying attention, remembering things, trying new things. And all these skills are super important for language learning. So when we work on teaching a child to play, we are building the foundation for words. Questions to ask yourself about your child's current state of play. Does your child enjoy playing with toys? Does she know how to play with a toy in the way that's meant to be played with? Or does her play pretty much consist of mouthing toys, banging, hitting, throwing toys? Is she able to play with several toys appropriately, not just one or two? And then does she watch you when you show her how to play with new toys and take in that information and learn for the next time? The 7th prelinguistic skill is understanding early words and simple directions. So this skill is important because understanding of language always comes before the use of language. And a child needs to understand words before he can use those words to communicate. Questions to consider. Does your child turn or look towards you when asked, where's mommy or where's daddy? Will he give you something when you ask for it? If you say, find your shoes, is your child going to turn in the direction of his shoes, go get them and bring them back? Can he point to body parts and you ask him questions like, where's your tummy? And does he respond to safety words like no and stop and do so pretty consistently? The 8th skill is vocalizing or making sounds purposefully. So this skill is important for language because words are meaningful. And before using words, a child makes sounds with intention to communicate a message or to gain your attention. Questions to ask. Does your child make noise to get your attention? Does she almost consistently make noise, babble, or just make different kinds of noises, kind of explore and play around with her mouth movements to see what all her mouth does? And does your child use different vocalizations or sounds when she is hungry versus sleepy and so on? The 9th prelinguistic skill is imitating the actions, gestures, sounds, and eventually words of others. Imitation is important because that's how children learn to talk. They take in what is around them and they imitate what they hear other people say. But when imitation develops early on, it starts as imitating actions or silly faces or sounds. So questions to ask: does your child copy actions that he sees or sounds he hears? If you make a silly face or noise, will your child make one back at you? Does he ever try to imitate something you do in a familiar routine, like maybe talking on the phone or like washing dishes, making dinner? The 10th prelinguistic skill is using early gestures. This is important for language because we use gestures all the time to communicate with or without words throughout all of life. I've been using gestures this entire time as I'm talking with my hands. So there are lots of different types of gestures that children develop: reaching, pointing, showing, clapping, shaking or nodding their heads, waving, blowing kisses, raising their arms to be picked up, and so many more. A gesture is anything a child does with his body to communicate a message. And research has shown that gestures develop just before words emerge, which makes them super important. Questions to consider: does your child seem to understand your gestures? Does she try to imitate the gestures you use? And does she look where you point to or wave back to someone who waves at her? The 11th and final prelinguistic skill is initiating interactions with others to get needs met. This is important for language because we need to use language throughout all of life to initiate communication with others, to share our thoughts, our wants, our needs, ideas. Communication is social, and one of the first reasons children communicate is to get their needs met. Some questions to consider: will your child ask for help if unable to do something himself? And even if it's not with words, does he use other ways to get your attention and to communicate what he needs? Or are you still relying on your intuition to determine why your child may be fussy or crying? So that wraps up the 11 prelinguistic skills that are foundational for language development. I love viewing early communication through the lens of these skills because it helps you see so many strengths and that your child is interacting and communicating in ways that you may not even notice, even though he or she is not using words yet. So I myself love early intervention and recently became certified in Hannon's It Takes Two to Talk program. And that is basically a parent education program for parents with toddlers or children with language delays who may not yet be talking or maybe just aren't caught up with peers. And so this is an awesome program that teaches parents how to support their child at home and how to support that language development. And there have been awesome results study after study. So like I said, I'm certified to teach that and super excited to bring that program to the families at Big Blue Canopy and in Cincinnati. So be on the lookout for that in the coming months to see when that's going to get started up. And if you are interested, you can email me at the email that will be posted here at the end. All right, so thank you so much for joining. If you have concerns about your child's language development after listening to this video, a speech language pathologist at Big Blue Canopy would love to come alongside your family in supporting your child's communication. So please reach out with any concerns, questions, or for more information on what I shared today. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.